Jordan moved into the neighborhood on a warm afternoon with boxes stacked in neat rows and a calm smile on his face. He liked order. He liked lists. He liked knowing where things belonged. He had saved for years for this small home with a tidy yard and a short driveway. His friend Maya helped him carry the heavier boxes and reminded him to drink water. They laughed when the tape stuck to their hands and when the welcome mat slid out of place. It felt like a new chapter, simple and hopeful. They both wanted peace. The street looked friendly at first glance. There were trimmed lawns, small trees, and the same style of mailboxes. A few neighbors waved from their porches. A child rode, a bike slowly along the sidewalk. A dog walker nodded and gave a kind hello. Jordan thought it felt safe and steady. Later that evening, he sat on the steps and read the binder with the Homeowners Association rules. The binder was thick and full of details. It explained parking, trash bins, lawn care, paint colors, and even the size of lawn signs. He wanted to follow everything correctly. Maya opened the binder to a page about visitor parking. The page had a map and arrows. "It is not hard," she said, "but it is precise." Jordan marked the page with a sticky note. He also added reminders to his phone for trash days, yard trimming, and the monthly HOA meeting. He knew that rules could keep a place clean and safe if they were fair and clear. He decided to keep every letter and email from the HOA in a folder, so he would never miss a requirement or date. The neighbor across the street watched the moving truck all afternoon. She stood near her mailbox and made short notes on a pad. She did not wave. She did not smile. She looked from the truck to the street and back again with a serious face. Jordan noticed, but he did not take it personally. Some people just liked quiet and order, he thought. That night, he wrote a short introduction letter and slipped it under a few doors on his block. He said he was happy to be there and that he would be mindful of everyone's peace. A few days later, a small white envelope appeared on Jordan's door. It was from the HOA. The letter thanked him for joining the community and reminded him that trash bins had to be brought in on the same day as collection. It also noted that his visitor had parked for 30 minutes in a space marked short term, which was allowed, but it asked everyone to be careful. The tone was formal but polite. Jordan took a picture of the letter and added it to his folder. He also moved his calendar reminder for trash day 1 hour earlier. Maya visited again on the weekend. They hung curtains and assembled a bookshelf. The music was soft. Their laughter was easy. In the late afternoon, Jordan noticed the neighbor across the street watching again. She crossed her arms and took another note. Jordan turned the music down further and closed the window. When he stepped outside to sweep the porch, she mentioned that cars should not block the sidewalk even a little bit. He thanked her and adjusted his car by a few inches. He wanted no conflict. He wanted to be the kind of neighbor who made everything calmer. In the second week, Jordan received a notice about a small lawn sign. He had placed a simple welcome stake near the path, and the letter said it exceeded the size limit by 1 inch. He measured it and saw that the letter was correct. He took the sign down. He smiled to himself, thinking that rules were rules. He told Maya about it on the phone. She laughed and said, "This place loves details." He laughed too, even though a part of him wondered how many notices would come over such small things. At the first HOA meeting Jordan attended, the board sat behind a long table in the clubhouse. The president spoke in a clear, steady voice about budgets, landscaping, and parking enforcement. Residents could speak for 2 minutes each. A few people asked about common areas and broken lights. One person asked about the pool schedule. The neighbor across the street spoke too. She talked about noise and rule following and the need for firm responses. Her tone was serious. The board nodded and said they would continue to apply the rules evenly. Jordan listened carefully. He liked the idea of fairness. He hoped it was true. After the meeting, a man named Luis introduced himself and said he lived 3 doors down. He smiled and said welcome. Then he lowered his voice and said that sometimes fines felt sudden and the rules changed without clear notice. He told Jordan to keep all emails and letters. Another person shared a similar story in a quiet tone. almost like a secret. They were not angry. They were tired. Jordan thanked them for the advice. He walked home slowly. He decided to install a doorbell camera for safety and clarity, not to watch anyone, but to have a neutral record of who came to the door and when. The next week brought a small confusion about guest parking. Maya came by for an hour to help, set up a desk. She parked in a marked guest spot and stayed well within the time limit. Later that day, Jordan found a warning on his door about frequent visitors and limited spaces. The letter did not say he had broken any rule. It only suggested being mindful. Jordan wrote a polite email asking for clarification. He explained the visit time and included a photo with a timestamp. The reply came from a general HOA address and simply restated the reminder. He saved both messages. The neighbor across the street started to note the times when people came and went from Jordan's home. She did not speak directly most days, but her gaze said she was watching. Jordan did not want to assume anything. He kept doing his tasks. He trimmed his bushes to the exact height in the binder. He moved the trash bins at the right time. He edged the garden and swept the sidewalk. When a package arrived and sat for an hour, he brought it inside and wiped the porch. He felt like he was walking a quiet line between being himself and being the person the rules required. Small frictions appeared in simple ways. One afternoon, the wind pushed his recycling bin slightly into view from the street. A note arrived the next morning. On another day, a delivery driver paused briefly in a red-painted curb space to carry a box up the steps. Another note arrived about reminding delivery people of rules. Jordan did not argue. He added each note to the folder. He also placed gentle signs for drivers near his doorbell camera. Thank you for not blocking the curb. He tried to solve problems before they showed up as a letter. Maya's presence was a comfort. She kept saying, I'd stay calm, stay kind, stay clear. They made a simple plan. If a letter came, they would read it, fix the issue, then confirm in writing what they had done. If they had a question, they would ask it politely in an email. If they saw something confusing in the rules, they would ask at the next meeting. Jordan did not want to be known as a complainer. He wanted to be known as a good neighbor who followed the process. He believed that process could work if everyone respected it. At the second HOA meeting he attended, Jordan stood up when it was his turn and spoke for his 2 minutes. He thanked the board for keeping the community clean and safe. He asked if there could be a clearer guide with pictures for visitor parking so new residents could understand quickly. He suggested a small welcome sheet for new owners with the top 10 things to remember. His voice was gentle, his words were simple. The board said they would consider it. A few neighbors came to him afterward and said it was a good idea. He felt encouraged. Still, he noticed that the neighbor across the street seemed unhappy whenever he spoke. She left the meeting quickly and did not make eye contact. The next morning, she stood outside with her notepad again. He waved. She did not wave back. Jordan reminded himself that not everyone had to be friends. Respect was enough. He also reminded himself that private feelings did not change public facts. If he stayed calm and followed the rules, the facts would speak for themselves. He set up a simple system at home. A basket by the door for mail, so letters would never go missing. A shared spreadsheet with Maya, where they recorded dates and times for visitor parking, trash bin movements, and meeting notes. He saved each email as a PDF and backed up the doorbell camera clips that showed normal, quiet visits. He was not preparing for a fight. He was preparing to be clear. He wanted a record that could help solve confusion if it ever came up. The street had small moments of sweetness too. A neighbor 2 houses down shared extra lemons from her tree. A teenager offered to mow lawns for a fair price. A retired teacher gave away books on a small shelf near his gate. Jordan liked these moments. They made the rules feel less heavy. He greeted people by name when he learned it. He kept his voice soft in the evening. He swept fallen leaves from the sidewalk and smiled when the child on the bike waved. One afternoon, a board email went out to everyone reminding residents about parking time limits and quiet hours. The email said there had been several concerns about gatherings. It did not name anyone. It did not say what had happened. It simply said the board would be attentive. Jordan read it twice. He wondered if the message was about him. He had not hosted any loud gathering. He had followed the quiet hours. He had a friend visit now and then, but always within the rules. He decided not to take it personally. He set a reminder to ask a respectful question about how concerns were measured. On a calm evening, Jordan sat on his porch with tea and watched the light change. The street was quiet. The sky was soft and clear. He felt proud of his home, proud of his careful work, and proud of how he stayed patient. He knew there would always be rules. He accepted that. Saturday evening came with a soft breeze and a pale sky. Jordan liked evenings like this. He and Maya had planned a small, calm time together. It was not a party. There was no loud music. It was just two friends talking in the living room while they finished setting up a small desk and put new labels on storage boxes. The door was open to let the air move and the porch light was on. Jordan placed his phone on the table to keep track of time. He had already checked the visitor parking map in the binder and made sure everything was correct. Maya had parked in a proper guest spot, well within the time limit. They double-checked it because they wanted to be careful. They laughed quietly about a wobbly bookshelf leg and then fixed it with a small piece of felt. Maya told a story from work that made Jordan smile. The music from the speaker was very low, the kind you almost forget is there. When they stepped onto the porch to take a short break, Jordan noticed the neighbor across the street watching, just like before. She stood with a notepad in one hand and her phone in the other. Jordan lifted his hand in a small wave and said, "Good evening." The neighbor did not wave back. She spoke across the street in a firm voice and said the street had rules. Guests had to be careful, and there could be no noise. Jordan kept his voice gentle and said, "Understood. We are keeping it quiet." He thanked her and went back inside with Maya. They decided to end the visit early anyway, just to be extra respectful. Jordan set a timer to remind them. They washed 2 teacups and Maya took a photo of the finished desk to send to her brother, who liked small do-it-yourself projects. They were talking about which curtain to order next when they heard the neighbor's voice again, louder this time, from outside. She said she would call 911. Jordan walked to the door and said softly, "We are within the rules. If there is a concern, we can talk calmly." He did not step off his porch. He spoke from the threshold and kept his hands visible at his sides. The neighbor lifted her phone and spoke into it while watching his house. Jordan felt a small knot in his stomach. He did not want any trouble. He turned to Maya and said, "Let's wrap up now." He checked the doorbell camera to make sure it was recording. It was. He also made a quick voice note on his phone. Date, time, who was present, the state of the evening. He was not trying to prove anything. He just wanted clarity if anything became confusing later. He and Maya picked up the last few items. She texted him a photo of where she had parked with the timestamp, a normal practice they had started using. Then they both sat on the couch for a moment to wait for a good time to carry out the folding table they no longer needed. The street was quiet. The porch light glowed softly. A minute passed, then 2. Jordan heard the faint sound of sirens in the distance, not close, but not far either. He breathed slowly and told himself to stay calm. He did not know if the sirens were for them. Cities had sirens all the time. Still, he felt the weight of the moment. He looked at Maya and said, "If officers come, we will speak clearly. Hands visible, calm words. We will invite them to view our camera footage." Maya nodded. She sat by the coffee table with her hands folded. And then there was a sudden, sharp sound. It was not like a dropped pot or a car backfiring right next to them. It was a loud snap that broke the quiet air and echoed off the houses. Jordan felt a quick sting on his upper arm, as if a small stone had hit him. He did not see anything fly, and he did not see where the sound came from, but he knew it was serious. Maya flinched and pulled him down behind the couch, her face pale. Jordan's heart thumped. He did not want to assume anything, but he wanted to protect them. He guided Maya away from the windows, staying low and moving with steady care. "Call 911. Maya whispered. Jordan was already picking up his phone. He spoke clearly to the dispatcher. He said his name, his address, and that there was a loud bang outside, and he felt a sting on his arm. He said they were inside, away from the windows, and that they needed officers and medical support to check on everyone's safety. He did not accuse anyone. He did not guess. He just reported what happened and offered to share his doorbell camera footage. The dispatcher's voice was calm. She asked them to stay inside, keep the door locked, and wait for officers. Jordan thanked her and placed the phone on speaker so both he and Maya could hear instructions. Jordan took a small first aid kit from a drawer. He looked at his arm. There was a short red line like a scrape, but he could move his arm well. He pressed a clean pad gently to the spot and kept breathing slowly. Maya sat with her back against the inner wall. She kept her phone ready and watched the entryway. The living room felt very quiet now, except for the soft voice of the dispatcher and the faint hum of the refrigerator. Jordan could still hear distant sirens. He closed his eyes for 1 second and then opened them. He wanted his mind to stay steady. A moment later, there was a firm knock at the door and a voice. "Police." Jordan answered from a safe distance. "We are inside. We will come to the door slowly with empty hands." He asked if he could open the door. The officer said yes. Jordan put his hands in front of him and stepped forward calmly. Maya stayed behind him. He opened the door and saw 2 officers standing on the porch, with 2 more on the sidewalk. There, lights were on and they scanned the area. The officers asked if everyone was okay. Jordan said he felt a sting on his arm but was stable, and Maya was okay. He told them about the loud sound and said he had doorbell camera footage and a timeline. He also explained that the neighbor had said she would call 911. The officers listened carefully and then asked them to step outside so paramedics could take a quick look. Paramedics arrived with a kit. They examined Jordan's arm, cleaned the area, and placed a small bandage. They asked simple questions. Any dizziness? Any pain? Any medical conditions? Jordan answered clearly. The paramedics wrote notes and said he should follow up for a routine check but that he was stable. Jordan thanked them. Meanwhile, 2 officers walked across the street to speak with the neighbor. Another officer asked Jordan and Maya to describe what they were doing before the sound, whether there had been any argument, and whether they had any records. Jordan showed his phone with the voice note and the time-stamped photo of Maya's car in the guest spot. He also opened the doorbell camera app and played the last few minutes. The audio was calm. There was low music and normal voices. The officer nodded and asked if Jordan could save the clip for the report. Jordan said yes and exported the file with the timestamp. Across the street, the neighbor spoke quickly and looked upset. She pointed at Jordan's house and said she was concerned about rules and safety. The officers took her statement, then returned to Jordan to ask a few more questions. They asked where he had been standing when he felt the sting. They looked at the porch, at the wall, and at the small area near the steps. They used flashlights to scan for anything out of place. The street remained calm. Some neighbors peeked from windows but stayed inside. The officers kept their voices, steady and professional, always explaining what they were doing and why. One officer asked Jordan if he had any reason to believe someone would want to cause trouble. Jordan said no. He lived a quiet life, followed rules, and tried to be respectful. He said the neighbor had shown strong concern about minor things in the past, but he did not want to guess about anyone's actions. He repeated that he would trust the process and provide all records. The officer thanked him and said a detective might follow up for additional details and any video from nearby cameras. Jordan said he would cooperate fully. While they were still on the porch, Jordan's phone buzzed with a new email alert. It was from the HOA's general address. The message was short. It said there had been disturbances and reminded residents about quiet hours and parking. It did not mention safety. It did not ask if anyone was hurt. Jordan read it slowly and felt a small drop in his chest, like a pebble falling into a glass. He did not reply right away. He saved the email as a PDF and put it in his folder. When the officers finished their first round of questions, they gave Jordan and Maya a case number. They told them how to request a copy of the report and how to share video clips. They also said that if they remembered anything later, even a small detail, they should call. Jordan thanked them for their work and asked if he could give them a printed timeline once he typed it up. The officer said that would be helpful. Maya asked if it was safe to stay the night. The officer said they would patrol the area for a while and recommended keeping doors locked, lights on, and phones close by. After the officers left, the house felt both safe and strange. The bandage on Jordan's arm was a small, quiet thing, but it carried the weight of the evening. He walked through each room with Maya and checked the windows and doors. He set the doorbell camera to save clips for the next 12 hours. He backed up the files to a drive and labeled them by date and time. He typed a simple timeline on his laptop. When Maya arrived, where she parked, when the neighbor spoke, when the loud sound occurred, when he called 911, when officers arrived, and what they did. He kept the language plain. He did not add emotion to the document. He would let the facts stand. Maya made tea and placed a cup on the table next to him. They sat quietly. She said, "You handled that well." Jordan shook his head and said, "I just fo." Morning brought a clear sky and the steady rhythm of weekday life, but Jordan felt the weight of the night before. He made a simple breakfast, answered 2 work emails, and then opened the folder with all his notes. He checked each file name and timestamp. He played the doorbell camera clip again to see if he had missed any small sound or motion. He did not want to guess. He wanted to be exact. He wrote a short cover note for the video. Quiet conversation inside, neighbors. Voice outside, then loud sound, then 911 call. He kept the language plain and careful. Before noon, his phone buzzed with a call from a detective. The detective's tone was calm and respectful. He asked Jordan to describe the evening from start to finish, slowly, without rush. Jordan spoke, in simple order. Who was present, where they were standing, what they heard, where Maya parked, and when the doorbell camera recorded each piece. The detective asked for the clip and the timeline. Jordan sent both while they were on the call. He also offered the photo of the guest parking spot and the screenshot of the HOA email that arrived during the officer's visit. The detective thanked him and said he might have more questions later. 10 minutes after the call ended, a new letter appeared on Jordan's door from the HOA. It was a standard notice printed on letterhead. It said there had been an unauthorized gathering and parking pressure, and warned him to follow quiet hours closely. It did not mention safety. It did not ask if anyone had been hurt. Jordan read it twice. He felt a small ache in his chest, not from his arm but from the tone. He placed the letter on his desk and took a slow breath. Then he scanned it and added it to the folder with a note. Arrived morning after incident. He wrote a polite reply to the HOA inbox. I received this notice. For clarity, the visit followed quiet hours and parking rules. A safety incident occurred and is under police review. I am open to a meeting to discuss a safety policy for the community. He pressed send. That afternoon, Maya came by with soup and a calm smile. She asked if he wanted her to stay for a bit. He nodded. They sat at the table with a notepad between them. Let's list what we know and what we do not know, Maya said. They wrote 2 columns. In the no column, they listed timestamps, video clip, 911 call, paramedic notes, HOA email timing. In the do not know column, they wrote who made the loud sound, why the HOA email used the word disturbances, whether other neighbors had similar experiences. The list made the air feel clearer, like cleaning a window. Luis texted to check in again. He asked if Jordan planned to attend the next HOA meeting. Jordan said yes. Luis then sent a short message. Others may have things to share too. The here words felt like a small door opening. Jordan set a reminder to bring 5 printed copies of his timeline to the meeting in case people wanted to see the format and make their own. The next day, Jordan had a short, careful phone call with a local attorney. He did not ask for a fight. He asked for guidance on staying organized and safe. The attorney suggested keeping the timeline updated, saving all emails as PDFs. and asking for public records where allowed, such as 911 call logs related to his address and any recorded complaints. The attorney reminded him to keep his words neutral in writing and to focus on facts. Jordan thanked him and wrote down the steps. He then drafted 2 public records requests with simple language and sent them to the appropriate offices. A few hours later, Jordan received another email from the HOA about ongoing attention to rules. The email included a paragraph about fines for repeated issues. It did not say he had a fine. It was a general message to all residents. Still, the timing felt sharp. He saved the email and added a short note. Second general reminder this week. He felt calm. He was not alone this time. Within minutes, he got a message from a neighbor named Priya. Did you see that email? This is the 3rd reminder this month. I have 2 warnings for things I fixed the same day. Jordan replied kindly and asked if she kept copies. She said, yes. He asked if she would bring them to the next meeting. She said she would. On the 3rd morning after the incident, a plain envelope came in the mail. Inside was a notice about minor landscaping out of spec. Jordan measured his bushes and saw they were within the rule height. He took photos with a ruler and the date written on paper beside the plant. He sent a polite email to the HOA with the photos attached and asked if they could confirm the correct measurement. He kept his tone soft. The response came later that day saying the notice may have been sent in error and thanking him for the photos. He saved that too. The detective called again and asked if Jordan had noticed any pattern in prior complaints. Jordan explained the rhythm of letters, the neighbor's steady notes, and the sequence of events on the night of the loud sound. The detective asked for any older notices. Jordan shared a zip file with dates and descriptions. The detective said he appreciated the clear labeling. Jordan felt a small wash of relief. Organization was not drama. It was a light in a dark room. A former employee of the property management company reached out to Jordan through a mutual contact. The person did not share secrets. They spoke about process in general and said that sometimes boards depended on a few strong voices and lost sight of even hands. They suggested asking for a transparent appeals process in writing. Jordan thanked them and wrote the idea on a card. Ask for appeals process. He placed the card on the top of his folder so he would not forget. The days before the HOA meeting moved slowly but not without purpose. Jordan updated his timeline with a new section called Community Contacts. He did not add opinions. He wrote down the date and name whenever a neighbor said they had a similar experience with sudden notices or unclear rules. He asked if they wanted their names shared or kept private at first. He respected every answer. He also made a simple handout titled Calm Steps for Clarity, with a short list. Save every notice, label every photo, request public records, use gentle words, seek facts, attend meetings, ask for even rules. When the evening of the HOA meeting arrived, Jordan dressed in a simple shirt and brought his folder, his handouts, and a calm heart. The clubhouse smelled like fresh cleaner and had rows of chairs set out. The board sat behind a long table again. The president began with the agenda, budget updates, pool repairs, and rule reminders. Then came the open comments, 2 minutes per person. Jordan sat in the second row waiting his turn. Priya sat behind him with a neat stack of papers. Luis sat on the aisle, ready to speak if needed. When Jordan's name was called, he walked to the microphone. He thanked the board for the work. They did. He spoke softly and clearly. He said there had been a safety incident at his home and that he had cooperated fully with police. He did not name the neighbor. He did not accuse. He shared that he had video, a timeline, and a process for keeping records. He asked the board to consider a neutral review of fines and warnings over the past year to make sure rules were applied evenly. He also asked for a clear appeals process and a simple safety policy for conflict de-escalation, such as a reminder to call management before calling emergency numbers for non-urgent matters. The room was quiet. The board president thanked him and said they would take it under advisement. Another board member added that rules were rules and that enforcement kept the community strong. Jordan nodded and returned to his seat. Priya stepped up next. She spoke gently, her voice a little shaky at first, then stronger. She described 2 notices she received the same week for things she had already fixed, and how she did not know who to ask for a second look. She held up her papers. "I just want clarity," she said. "I want to know the steps and the timeline for appeals." A few heads in the room nodded. Luis spoke after her. He shared how a delivery driver once paused for a minute in the wrong spot, and he received a warning the next day, even though he was standing beside the driver asking them to move. "Maybe we need a grace window," he said, "like 5 minutes to correct a mistake before a warning is sent." More nods followed. A man from the back raised his hand and told a short story about change requests for his front door color. He described how the approval process took long, then rules seemed to shift. He did not blame anyone. He asked for a posted timeline with dates so residents would not feel lost in the process. The board listened. One member wrote notes quickly, another looked tired. The president thanked everyone again and said they would discuss these matters in a closed session and issue a statement next week. Jordan wrote the date and those words in his notebook. He did not want to miss the follow-up. As the meeting ended, a small group gathered around Jordan. People spoke in low voices. They shared brief summaries of letters, photos on phones, and dates. Jordan did not collect anything he was not invited to collect. He only told them how he labeled his files and offered a copy of his Calm Steps for Clarity sheet. Priya took 3 extra copies for neighbors who could not attend. A man who had not spoken said he was worried about making anyone upset. Jordan said, "Use gentle words, not loud ones. Save your papers. The facts can stand on their own." On his walk home, the night felt different. The air was cool and the houses were quiet, but he did not feel alone. The folder in his hand was the same weight as before, yet it felt shared now, like a book many people could read. Back inside his home, he placed the folder on his desk and where the week after the meeting felt like a slow door opening. Jordan kept living his normal life, but each day brought a small piece of clarity. Early on Monday, the detective called again. His tone was steady, almost like a teacher who wants to make sure every fact is in the right place. He said he had reviewed Jordan's doorbell clip and 3 earlier clips showing quiet visits. He also said the 911 audio from that night did not match certain parts of the neighbor's first statement. The times did not line up. The words did not match the sounds on the recording. He did not share opinions. He shared findings. Jordan listened and answered only when asked. He felt both careful and hopeful. Later the same morning, Jordan received a short email from a person who used to work for the property management company that handled the HOA's day-to-day tasks. The person had heard through a neighbor that Jordan kept clear records and spoke with calm. The email was gentle and respectful. It said, "I cannot share confidential information, but I can point to public patterns." The person listed 3 items that could be checked through normal channels. 1. Monthly vendor payments that seemed to jump without explanation. 2. Fines that were credited to a discretionary line before being sent to the general fund. And 3. Repeat warnings. For a small group of homes with few warnings for others. The person ended with, "Ask for documents. Ask in writing. Keep everything." Jordan read the email twice. He did not rush. He thanked the person. Then he made a new page in his folder labeled Finance Questions. He wrote each item in simple words he could understand. Vendor. Payments rising. Fines path. Warning pattern. He did not write accusations, he wrote topics to explore. He drafted a polite request to the HOA board asking for a basic financial summary, a list of vendors for the past year, and the policy for handling fines and appeals. He used soft language. "For community understanding and trust, could we please see?" He clicked send, and then he saved his sent message as a PDF. The next day, the detective scheduled a short, in-person interview at the station. Nothing dramatic, just a room with a table and 2 chairs. Jordan brought printed timelines, photos, and a USB drive with his files. He walked in on time, greeted the receptionist, and sat with his folder on his lap. When the detective arrived, He thanked Jordan for being organized. He asked again about the sequence of the evening: porch, voices, loud sound, 911 call, arrival of officers. Jordan kept the same simple order as before. The detective said a specialist had looked at the porch area and found a small mark that matched the shape of a sharp impact, consistent with what Jordan felt, a graze and not a deep injury. The specialist had also checked the direction. The HOA mark pointed toward the side of the street where the neighbor had stood. Jordan swallowed and nodded. He did not celebrate. He did not argue. He asked, "What should I do next?" The detective said, "Keep saving everything. We will ask for more records." That afternoon, a larger change began. Residents who had spoken to Jordan at the meeting sent him copies of their letters and notices. Priya scanned her warnings. Luis sent timestamps of delivery moments. 2 other neighbors shared emails about landscaping errors that had later been called mistakes. Jordan did not post these papers anywhere. He created a private index. He labeled each file with the date, the type of notice, and whether it had been corrected or withdrawn. He kept names covered unless people said it was okay to share them. He felt a growing sense of careful teamwork. It was not loud. It was not angry. It was steady. On Thursday, the HOA board replied to Jordan's finance request with a short message. They said the annual report was on the website and that vendors were internal matters. Jordan read the message carefully. He opened the website and found the annual report, which had large numbers but few details. He took notes in the margin: landscaping total, security total, admin total. He could not see vendor names or contract dates. He wrote a soft follow-up. Could we have a vendor list and contract periods even if amounts are not shown? This helps residents understand service changes. He pressed send and saved the message. The next morning, the detective reached out with a new request. He asked if Jordan had any emails from the HOA about disturbances on the night of the incident, because the timing could be important. Jordan sent the email he had saved, showing it arrived while officers were still present. The detective thanked him and said timing would help them understand who knew what and when. Jordan closed his laptop and sat for a moment. He thought about time like a string, and how each knot on the string mattered. By the weekend, more residents started, writing their own timelines using Jordan's Calm Steps for Clarity sheet. One neighbor discovered she had received similar wording in 3 different warnings, all within a short window, each one triggered by a very small issue. Another neighbor found he had asked for an appeal by email, but never received a reply. Jordan did not turn these into a complaint pile. He turned them into a pattern map. He created a simple spreadsheet with columns: date, notice type, action taken, outcome, follow-up. He shared the blank template with anyone who asked and said, "Keep this for yourself first. If you choose to share later, you can." On Monday, the detective called with clean, direct words. "We will be seeking certain records from the board and from the neighbor. We may need your help identifying which emails or notices to request." Jordan agreed. He did not lead the process. He supplied dates and titles like a good librarian. The detective also said that statements now showed clear differences between the neighbor's first description and the 911 audio. He said they had found past 911 calls linked to minor issues at the same address. He did not share the details. He only said there was a pattern worth formal review. The same day, Jordan received a quiet message from the former management employee again. It said, "If you ask for vendor contracts from the management company directly, they may say those are held by the board. Ask both. Ask with dates." Jordan drafted 2 requests, one to the board and one to the management company, naming the same time window. From January to the present. He used calm, plain words and asked for copies of any conflict of interest policy and any written appeals process. He saved both emails in his folder and on his backup drive. 2 days later, the air in the neighborhood shifted. Unmarked cars arrived at the management company's office. Staff remained calm. Doors stayed open. Officers carried clipboards, not loud gear. They asked for digital records and paper files related to fines, vendor contracts, and board communications For a defined period. It was not a scene of noise, it was a scene of process. The same morning, officers visited the neighbor's home with a document that allowed them to collect devices and records related to the incident. Phone logs, sent, messages about disturbances and any home camera footage that might show the street. Neighbors watched from a distance. Some looked worried, some looked relieved. Jordan did not go near. He stayed home and organized his folder, ready to answer any question about dates. By evening, messages started to move through the community. People asked if everything would be okay. Jordan replied with the same line each time. Let the process work. Keep your records. Speak gently. He did not name anyone. He did not share private details. He kept trust by keeping boundaries. He called Maya and told her the basics. She said, I am proud of how you stay clear. He smiled softly, even though no one could see it on the phone. The next day brought a formal statement from the police. They were reviewing evidence from the incident and also examining possible administrative issues related to HOA operations. The statement was short and professional. It did not make claims. It named steps. It asked residents to share any relevant documents through a simple link. Jordan read the statement and then looked at his folder. He uploaded his timeline, his doorbell clip, and the email about disturbances. He did not upload anyone else's files. He sent only what was his to send. Later in the week, a careful discovery came through official channels, emails that suggested a few board leaders had discussed being firm with certain homes, using words like examples and pressure. The emails also showed side conversations about vendors who were friendly to the board. Jordan did not see the original emails. He heard through the detective's neutral summary that these documents existed and were being reviewed for context. The detective did not speak in color. He spoke in black and white. Still, Jordan felt the shape of the turning point. Facts were out in the open air at last. At the next HOA meeting, the room felt fuller. The board began with a brief note that they would cooperate fully with any lawful requests. Jordan raised his hand during the open comment time. He did not bring new papers. He brought the same clear message. We need a written public appeals process. We need a transparent vendor list. We need a simple safety policy that encourages calm steps before strong reactions. Priya echoed him. Luis asked for a 5-minute grace period rule. Another neighbor asked for a volunteer committee to review fines each month to spot mistakes. A board member who had stayed quiet before finally spoke. We hear you. We will vote on a temporary appeals pilot tonight. Jordan wrote down the words, temporary appeals pilot, and the date. After the meeting, as people walked to the parking lot, a soft murmur moved. The weeks that followed felt like a slow sunrise after a long night. The air in the neighborhood grew lighter, even if the work was not finished yet. Jordan kept his routine the same. Morning tea, a short walk, answering work emails, sweeping. The porch, watering the small plants near his front steps. He did not wait for big news. He kept moving in small, steady steps. Maya visited on weekends, and they talked about ordinary things, curtains, recipes, and how the lemon tree 2 houses down always seemed to carry more fruit than its size should allow. The appeals pilot began to run in real time. A neighbor named Priya used the new form for a warning that had arrived the week before. She attached photos and a timeline, just like the sheet Jordan had shared. 2 weeks later, she received a calm, written decision. Warning withdrawn, reason stated, suggestion given for how to avoid the same confusion next time. She printed the decision and waved it at Jordan in the sidewalk sunshine. It works, she said, smiling with relief. Jordan laughed softly and said, Good, let's keep it working. Luis submitted a simple appeal too. He showed that a delivery van had paused briefly and that he had guided the driver away in under a minute. The committee agreed, reminding everyone that a short correction window made sense for real life. The committee also suggested a small sign near the entry with a friendly 5-minute fix idea for visitors, delivery drivers, and residents. The board accepted the suggestion and placed the sign by the end of the week. It used gentle words. If something is out of place, a quick, kind correction keeps us all on track. More neighbors began to speak in soft voices instead of urgent whispers. A retired teacher brought a notebook to the next meeting with 3 clear questions about landscaping rules and how rain delays could be handled. A parent asked if the pool schedule could include 1 extra early hour for people who worked late shifts. A young couple who had stayed quiet before shared that they felt shy at the microphone, so the board added a box at the back of the room where people could leave written comments with their names and phone numbers for follow-up. One morning, the police shared a short public update. It said the incident at Jordan's home had moved forward in the legal process, and the neighbor involved would face charges. It also said that certain records from the HOA had been collected and were under review by the proper authorities. The note was simple and neutral. It did not ask people to take sides. It asked them to keep sharing documents if they had them. Jordan read the statement once and then put it in his folder under the tab, Official Updates. He did not post it. He did not celebrate. He breathed and went back to watering his plants. A week later, the board announced changes. 2 board members stepped down, saying they needed to focus on their families. An interim administrator from HOA, the management company, would help with daily tasks while an election was prepared. The board thanked the community for patience and promised a new phase of transparency. Jordan read the announcement and wrote the date on a small sticky note. Change in leadership. He placed it on the timeline page with a quiet feeling of release. Neighbors began to prepare for a special meeting to explain how elections would run. Jordan did not plan to run. He told Maya, "I am better with records than rallies." She laughed and said, "The community needs both, but choose the path that suits your heart." He chose to stand in the second row again, to ask clear questions and to listen carefully. He also offered to host a short How to Document Well session at the clubhouse one Saturday morning. 10 people came. He showed them how to name files with dates, how to save emails as PDFs, how to keep a simple 1-page timeline. The air in the room felt patient and kind, like a library on a sunny day. The appeals pilot was extended for another month, and then another. The volunteer committee posted a short monthly summary with numbers only. How many appeals, how many withdrawn, how many adjusted, and common reasons, with no names. The summary made people feel seen without making anyone feel exposed. The vendor list and contract dates were posted on the website too, along with a brief note about how bids would work for future projects. No one needed to understand every line to feel the difference. The shapes of the decisions were visible. If someone wanted to ask a question, they now had a clear place to start. In the middle of these changes, the detective called Jordan with simple guidance. He said the neighbor's case would move along a set path on the court's schedule. He said that other matters were still being reviewed, and that Jordan might be asked to confirm a date or a detail again. Jordan said he would be ready. After the call, he did what he always did. He updated his folder with a new line, plain words, no color. Call from detective, next steps explained. Then he made tea and stood at the window, watching a small bird hop along the fence and then flutter away. The special election arrived on a bright afternoon. People lined up in the clubhouse, said hello to one another, and signed the list. There were 3 open seats and 6 candidates. Each candidate gave a 1-minute talk. Some had simple promises. I will answer emails in 48 hours. Others spoke about kindness. Rules exist for peace, not pressure. One person shared a small story about a misunderstanding that turned into a friendship after a calm talk. On a porch. The words in the room felt different than before, less sharp, more hopeful. When the votes were counted, 2 new faces and 1 returning member took seats. The returning member had been the one who had listened quietly and then pushed for the appeals pilot. People clapped. No one cheered loudly. It was not a show. It was a shared step. After the election, the interim administrator announced 3 practical reforms. First, a de-escalation guide would be added to the welcome packet with simple steps. Speak calmly, seek management for non-urgent issues, call emergency services only for true emergencies, and record facts if safe to do so. Second, The website would include a public calendar showing when rules might flex for community events like a cleanup day or a charity drive. Third, there would be quarterly listening hours, where board members sat in the clubhouse for 2 hours and spoke with residents one-on-one. The ideas were not fancy, but they were clear. Jordan walked home from the clubhouse feeling lighter. The lemon tree's owner waved and handed him 2 bright lemons in a small paper bag. "For your tea," she said. He thanked her and smiled, all the way to his porch. Inside, he set the lemons on the counter and opened his folder one more time. He added the election flyer to the community tab. He placed the de-escalation guide behind the safety tab. He read the timeline from the beginning. The day he moved in, the first letter about trash bins, the night of the incident, the first detective call, the first appeals pilot meeting, until the present page. He felt something steady grow in his chest, not pride exactly and not relief alone, but a calm sense that good steps had built a good path. Maya came over that evening. They sat on the porch and watched the sky turn soft colors. She asked how he felt. He said, "I feel like the street can breathe." She nodded. They talked about small things again, the way people do when large things finally rest in good hands. They planned a small porch warming gathering, just tea, cookies, and quiet conversation with neighbors. They chose a Saturday afternoon when the sign near the entry would remind visitors about the friendly 5-minute fix. They made a simple paper invitation: tea on the porch, calm words, good company. They slipped invitations under nearby doors, including one for the retired teacher, one for Priya, and one for Luis. On the day of the gathering, the air was warm and bright. People arrived in pairs and small groups. Some brought cookies, others brought small jars of jam, and one person brought a tiny pot with a green plant for Jordan's window. The talk was easy. People compared notes on trash day tricks, told gentle jokes about lawn edges, and swapped tips on which vendor fixed a gate quickly. At one point, Jordan stood and thanked everyone for coming. He said he had learned 3 things in this season of his life. First, that calm records can protect truth. Second, that rules are tools for peace, not pressure. And third, that a neighborhood is a circle of people, not a stack of warnings. He said he was grateful to live on a street where people now waved with real warmth. Later, a short letter arrived for Jordan from the board. It thanked him for his steady help and invited him to join a new Good Practices Committee to keep the appeals process simple and fair. He did not need to run for office. He could be exactly who he was, a careful, calm helper. He accepted. The committee met once a month and checked if letters were clear, if photos explained things well, and if timelines were easy to follow. They also recommended that every notice include a friendly sentence at the end. If you believe there is a mistake, here is the form to request a second look. We want to get it right. As for the neighbor involved in the incident, her case continued along the court's schedule. Jordan did not follow every turn. He trusted the process and kept a respectful distance. One day, a mediator asked if a community safety meeting might help prevent future misunderstandings for everyone. Jordan agreed if the meeting could be general, not personal. The board hosted a short workshop on calm communication and safe, fair steps. People practiced how to describe a concern without blame and how to listen without interrupting. The Rusio